What's up guys, my name's Liam, and today we're going to be talking about the Razer Cobra and the Razer Cobra Pro. There's been a lot of controversy about these mice online, but in this video today, I'm going to shoot it to you guys straight. I'm going to give it to you honest. I'm going to tell you exactly how I feel about these out of the box, no bias at all, and more importantly, I'm going to let you guys know whether or not this is going to be the perfect gaming mouse for you. So let's check it out. All right guys, so here on the left, we have the Razer Cobra, and over here on the right, we have the old school Razer Viper Mini. So to start things out here, we'll go ahead and kick it off with just the original Cobra. I'm gonna do a brief overview of this. I'll put chapters down in the description below, so if you wanna jump around, if you're just here to see the Cobra Pro, whatever, please feel free and do so. This is pretty much a brand new Viper Mini. I've had a lot of Viper Minis before. I pretty much got this one brand new. I've hardly even used it, just for testing and picture purposes, stuff like that, for making content in these videos with. So kind of have two newer versions of both these mice here to be able to check them out against one another. And I do want to tell you guys off the bat that the Razer Cobra is, in my opinion, a massive upgrade over the Razer Viper Mini, and it truly fixes all the issues and complaints that I had about the actual filling, the clicks, all that stuff with the Razer Viper Mini. So jumping into it, the shapes are honestly really similar. So the one thing that I do notice, the Viper Mini, is it's kind of got this high bump up here, right here at the very top. And with the Cobra, they kind of smoothed it out and kind of flattened it on the top. For me personally, it's just a little more comfortable. It's not as noticeable. It doesn't stick up as high. So it just kind of makes the mouse sit in my hands a little more comfortably. And anyways, I think it's a great change. The design over here of the Cobra, this kind of design right here where it kind of has this outline, not really the biggest fan of this. It's not a huge deal or anything. I'm not sure if this will come through on the camera very well, but with these lines, it actually is kind of a groove that kind of dips in, and this upper shell right here kind of sticks out from it. So, you know, you can rub your fingers here on the edges, and depending on how you grip the mouse, I can see it possibly being a little uncomfortable or bothersome for some people. For me personally, the way I was gripping the mouse like this, pretty much, I didn't really notice it in hands, and you know, it is a much better than the holes on the Razer Viper Signature Edition, but just something I figured I'd bring up. I'm trying to point out as many different things as I can. Coming back over to the Razer Viper Mini, the original one, I always had issues with this mouse. The sides were extremely flexible, a lot of side flex. You can activate the side buttons on this mouse. The clicks to me always just felt really muddy. You know, they're easy to spam. They're a little lightweight, but I've never really been a huge fan of the clicks or just the flexibility or the overall build quality of the Razer Viper Mini. When it comes to the Cobra, I truly feel like my copy of the Cobra, it feels flawless. The clicks, it's got the new Gen 3 optical switches in here, and man, they just feel absolutely incredible. When it comes to pre-travel, there's almost no pre-travel. The right click button does have some pre-travel on it. Nothing terrible though, feels great. Scroll wheel feels incredible, nice and lightweight, easy to spam. The shell on this one is just absolutely perfect. I don't have any type of play, any flex, any popping, any side button activation, nothing. It really truly can't get any better than this with how this mouse feels. I'm honestly really impressed. And when it comes to the side buttons, man, these side buttons, they're just absolutely incredible. So when it comes to the overall build and feeling of the Cobra, to be completely honest with you guys, in my opinion, no bias, it truly feels like a perfect mouse to me. I love everything about the feeling of it. It's kind of got that old school, like textured vibe. It feels a little more textured than the old school Razer Viper Mini, but again, it's pretty much just the same similar plastic feeling. Not bothersome by any means. It's, even though it does feel like there's a little bit of a texture there, it's not too scratchy or bothersome or anything like that. It just truly all around just feels incredible in the hands. So what we're going to do right now is let's go ahead and we will drop a click sound test comparing the old school Razer Viper Mini to the Razer Cobra. All right, so as you guys can clearly see there, feels great, looks great. The buttons are nice and snappy, nice and poppy, easy to spam, pretty lightweight, great to use. Side buttons feel great. Honestly, everything about this mouse and hands feels just incredible in my opinion. And as you can clearly see here, it looks pretty much like the skates are pretty much identical. And most importantly, one of the biggest things they did is they got rid of this scratchy middle skate right here, and they actually did match the skates from top to bottom. All right, so now for the bad news. Now, I do want to let you guys know, obviously this is initial impressions video. I tested it out really quickly on a bunch of different games. I did use it for quite a bit. With my experience, I truly am having a lot of issues with the sensor. I don't know what the deal is. The sensor literally is not working on the Pulsar Superglide glass mouse pad. It is honestly one of the worst performing sensors I've ever used. Super spotty, hopping, skipping all over the place. I did actually swap out to the Razer Atlas to see if that would make a difference, especially since it's made by Razer. And it still had, it felt better. It felt more solid on the Razer Atlas for whatever reason, but it did kind of have that kind of jumpy, spotty feeling on it. You don't notice it that much on cloth pads, but you know, it just kind of has me a little bit wary. And honestly, it's pretty shocking to me that a mouse that's coming from Razer that's being made in 2023 is having sensor issues. That's honestly something that I never thought I would say. I've been testing a lot of cheaper mice lately and haven't had these types of issues. So was pretty interesting to me, but you know, hopefully I possibly have a defective copy. Hopefully, I'm not sure if they do any type of update with this or not. I'll have to look out for that in the future, see if anything is mentioned. But if you guys do decide to pick this mouse up and you do have a glass mouse pad, you're using any type of glass pad out there, give it a test. Let me know if you guys notice any difference. Again, I did test it next to the Razer Viper Mini. The Razer Viper Mini always has kind of been a little jumpy on glass mouse pads as well. Not as noticeable as this one, but just to let you guys know, I am gaming at 3200 DPI, and the issue did become more apparent. I tried messing around with lower DPIs. The higher up you go in DPI, so if you guys can test it out for me and let me know that in the comments below, I'd really appreciate that. And let's go and throw these mice on the scale. Here we got the Razer Viper Mini, the old school, coming in about 60 grams. If we throw the Cobra on here, so the Cobra is a bit lighter, coming in at 55.9 grams. So like I said, the initial feeling overall, this mouse, it just feels great. The weight of it felt incredible. Truly testing this out side by side with the Razer Viper Mini. Aside from the issues that I was having with the sensor performance, I would just say that all around that the feeling, the clicks, everything on this mouse completely outclasses the Razer Viper Mini. So I would say that if I can get these sensor issues figured out or resolved in any way, that I would definitely say that this is a 2 thumbs up as far as it being an upgrade over the original Razer Viper Mini for me. And obviously, I don't want to get too deep into the drama or anything like that. Personally, I'm really confused as to why we got the sensor that we got in this mouse. I felt like it would have made just common sense to have made an 8K version. I mean, the Razer Viper 8K has been out forever. That's truly what I was expecting. So if this mouse did come in the 8K version, I truly think it would just destroy every other wired mouse on the market. Nothing would come close to it for the price that it's at. Even if it was a little more expensive, it would have been well worth it. And if I get any updates in the future about the issues I'm having with the sensor or anything like that, I'll definitely make sure and let you guys know. If you go ahead and follow me on my Twitter at AimAdapt, I'll go ahead and make sure to post some information on there for you guys once I find out anything or get any other word. All right, and next up, we have the Razer Cobra Pro. Truly, this mouse, the performance is just incredible. You know, I jumped into some lobbies playing games. You know, right off the bat, I did throw this on a glass mouse pad starting out because of the extra weight. That's kind of what I do with heavier mice. I think that this mouse felt great. I really liked it. Yeah, I had to adjust to the weight. Yeah, the balance is a little bit off on it, but in no time, my first game playing with this mouse, I was running lobbies, getting the same kills, doing the same amount of damage, everything that I normally do when I am playing in games with even mice that I prefer over this one slightly. Do I think that this mouse is great? And do I think that a lot of people are going to fall in love with this mouse? You know, after personally using it myself, I truly do believe so. I feel like everything about it's great. The clicks are great. The switches feel great. The scroll feels great. Everything on it feels like a solid mouse overall. And as it comes to no surprise, when it does come to Razer, the sensor and performance on this mouse is just absolutely incredible. The second I turned this on, I went straight to 4K and it just felt all around great. I didn't have any single issues with it. Tracking, performance, everything was just spot on and it felt perfect to me. So jumping into the details here, let's first get into the weight and balance. When it comes to the weight of the mouse, you know, it definitely does feel a little bit back heavy. I would say that's about the center of the mouse right there. It's not horrible, but it is definitely a little bit back heavy. The one thing I did notice, however, is the left to right balance. As you can see there, it is definitely off. It is more over to the left side. And we will throw it up here against the Razer Viper Mini Signature Edition. I honestly kind of prefer this skate design over the 4-dot skates here in the corner. Honestly, the skates just felt great. I tried on a couple different pads. I felt like the tracking, I felt like everything just using this mouse out of the gate, it just felt incredible. Now, obviously this doesn't have the same weight and balance that the Razer Viper Mini Signature Edition does. I feel like the weight and balance on this mouse is perfect. And if we were to throw the Cobra Pro on the scale, as you can see, I did remove the actual hockey puck that it does come with. It comes in at about 74 grams. And when it comes to the overall click feeling of the mouse, there is a little bit of pre-travel on mouse 1, nothing bad. I feel like there is a bit more of pre-travel on mouse 2. A little rocking going on here on the buttons. Not very much play back and forth. Overall feels really solid. And when it comes to scroll wheel, I absolutely love this scroll wheel. Nice defined steps. It's great to be able to have a rubberized scroll wheel again. I definitely don't like the metal scroll wheel on the Signature Edition myself personally. The middle click button on here is nice and spammable, easy to click, and you know, the buttons just feel pretty good overall. Coming over the side buttons feel nice and solid. There's literally almost no play on them. I've honestly never really disliked these rubber side grips. I know a lot of people out there in the mouse community hate the rubber side grips and despise them. They haven't really been so much of a bother for me personally, but I do want to say that when I'm testing both these mice side by side in the hands, you know, for whatever reason, just overall, I do like the feeling of the wired Cobra more than the Cobra Pro. So let's go ahead and drop a sound test, and I'll actually do a comparison. I'll put up a comparison with the Cobra Pro with the buttons versus the original Cobra. And when it comes to comparing the Razer Cobra Pro versus the glorious Series 1 Pro, I definitely feel like the Series 1 Pro, it feels a little bit like a longer style of a mouse. And one of the big differences between these two is I do feel like the middle hump here is a little bit higher compared to the Cobra. I do feel like the Cobra is overall a little more flattened out at the top middle of the hump there. And with the Cobra Pro, with the side grips on here, I'm not sure if it's just because of the side grips, but it does feel like just slightly a bit wider of a mouse than the glorious Series 1 Pro. However, when it does come to the overall size, dimensions, and shape of both these mice, they're honestly pretty similar to one another, and they have a pretty similar feeling in the hands. And next up, when comparing the Razer Cobra Pro to the Finalmouse Starlight-12 series, it's a small version, basically going to be the same size and dimensions of the ULX Cheetah. When comparing these mice on the side, I do feel like the Starlight-12 series, it feels like it sits just a little bit lower, and then it does have this quick taper off, but I feel like it kind of comes out longer to the bottom, whereas the Razer kind of feels more aggressive and dropping off earlier towards the rear. And then coming over to the bottom of these mice, in the very middle point, these mice feel very similar in the width. The difference is that the Razer Cobra, it curves out a lot more aggressively towards the front and the rear of the mouse. When comparing it to the Starlight-12 Small, as you can see here, it feels like overall a little bit of a flatter curvature profile on the sides, feeling more narrow towards the rear of the mouse and more narrow towards the front as well. Both of these mice, they feel very similar to one another. I would say, again, the Starlight-12 Small just overall just feels just a tiny bit smaller, but they do have pretty close similarities to one another. All right, and next up, when comparing the Razer Cobra Pro to the G Wolves HTX, it honestly feels kind of like a big difference here as I'm picking these up and putting these next to each other, as the HTX comes in at almost half the weight of the Cobra Pro. However, some of the differences here between the two, the shapes are pretty similar to one another. As you can see here, the HTX just looks like it's a little bit longer. And I do want to say that on the very top profile between these two mice here, I do feel like the Razer sits up a little bit higher, whereas I feel like the HTX just kind of feels like a flatter and just overall lower mouse to the ground. When we do come over here to the bottom of the mouse, they do have a pretty aggressive curved profile, both towards the front and the rear of the mice. And I would say that the HTX does feel like a little bit of a wider mouse compared to the Razer Cobra Pro. And as you can see here on the rear profile between these mice, I do feel like on the Cobra Pro, it does kind of taper off quickly from the top middle of the mouse to the sides. Whereas the overall feeling of the HTX in the hands, it kind of tapers off a little bit slower. They are pretty similar, but it does make the HTX feel just a little bit wider. And though these mice definitely feel different from one another, they're not too far off. then next up, when comparing the Razer Cobra Pro to the Lamzu Atlantis Mini 4K, both of these mice are pretty similar when it comes to the overall size of the mice. However, they both do have a completely different profile, with the Lamzu Atlantis having more of a rear hump, whereas the Razer Cobra Pro has more of a middle hump profile. And the width of both of these mice are pretty similar. However, the Lamzu Atlantis Mini does have kind of a unique difference. I feel like the curves are a bit more aggressive, and where it makes them feel even a little more aggressive is the fact that on the Lamzu Atlantis Mini, it gets more narrow towards the base, the bottom of the mouse, and I feel like it kind of flares up and gets wider towards the top of the mouse. And when comparing that to the Cobra Pro, anybody that's familiar with the Razer Viper Mini shape, it does kind of flare out towards the top as well, but it does so less aggressively, and it has overall a flatter feeling on the sides from bottom to top. And one final thing I feel like you notice with the Lamzu Atlantis Mini is, since it has a rear hump, I feel like it gets kind of lower towards the front of the mouse, and it sits a little bit lower to the ground. And last but not least, I'll be pulling up the Razer Cobra Pro versus the VGN Dragonfly. The Dragonfly and this mouse, they truly feel pretty similar to one another. Some of the clear differences, as you can see here, is I would say overall the VGN Dragonfly, it just kind of feels like slightly a bit of a bigger mouse than the Razer Viper Mini. Starting out with the length of the mouse, as you can see here, it is kind of a bit longer than the Razer Viper Mini. And another difference, as you can clearly see here, over on the VGN Dragonfly, it feels a little bit flatter at the very top of the mouse, whereas on the Cobra Pro, it definitely has more height towards the middle hump. And then the Cobra Pro, from the top middle hump, it tapers off more aggressively towards the rear, making it feel like a bit of a shorter mouse in the hands, towards this one tapers off slowly, and it kind of has more of a smaller gradual hump here at the back of the mouse. The curvature on the Dragonfly here is pretty aggressive on the side curves. They feel pretty similar to one another, again with the VGN Dragonfly just feeling a little bit wider than the Razer Cobra Pro. And though these mice aren't too far off from one another, I would definitely classify the VGN Dragonfly as feeling like more of a smaller medium style of a mouse. Alright guys, so that's my final thoughts on the Razer Cobra and the Razer Cobra Pro. I do feel like these are both great mice, with just, minor drawbacks. Don't get me wrong, the sensor issue, that might be a little bit of a bigger one. I'm not sure if I just got a bad copy, or I'll have to look into it further. But like I said, when it comes to the Cobra Pro, truly everything about this mouse is really good, really top tier in my opinion. And unfortunately, in 2023, it does have just very minor drawbacks. If you don't care that much about the weight or the balance, I can truly say that the shape and the feeling of this mouse overall, it just is really spot on. The optical switches in here performed incredibly. The sensor performance is truly unmatched. And I would say that this is a really great product that I myself personally even enjoy using. All right, guys, so if you have any questions or you feel like there's anything that I left out, please let me know down in the comments below. Aside from that, if you did enjoy this video and you're interested in seeing more videos like this in the future, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.